Hello and welcome to Beyond the Noise, the podcast series from PRWeek. I'm Evie Barrett, Deputy News Editor, and today I'm joined by two special guests to talk about all things meme-led marketing, looking at how brands are evolving their approach to social media. We've got George Bacon, founder of GBM Group, the meme native media shop, which has built a network of over 15 million followers across TikTok and Instagram on pages you may recognise such as Great British Memes and That Girl page. We're also joined by Maya Orr, founder of talent agency Big Name on Campus, who has previously held comms roles at the likes of LADbible and Lidl. Welcome both. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, before we delve into the topic, it'd be great to hear a bit from both of you about your backgrounds. Starting with you, George, could you explain a bit about the origins of GBM? How have you grown your pages to become as popular as they are today, and when did you start working with brands on those?
So I started with Great British Memes 8 years ago. And then from that, I kind of noticed the gap in the market at the time with Instagram where grow organic pages really, really quickly. And Instagram was shifting at this moment from just following your friends to following people that you're inspired by memes, but then kind of made their way from Twitter and Facebook to Instagram and capitalized on that. So as followed That Girl page, we had Love Island reactions. We have over 15 pages now. So it's kind of working on that and then kind of scaling them to grow. My previous experience was at Social Chain, so they utilized Twitter back then, and kind of it pretty much was the same sort of model in terms of having a network of pages on Twitter and then amplifying through brands. So I knew once Instagram kind of got to a certain point, brands would eventually reach out, which to be fair, I want to say maybe just under a year. So I think Love Island grew to 50k, and then within the next year we had partnerships with Misguided and Just Eat that naturally reached out. So once I found that brands would reach out naturally, I grew these other pages and it followed from that.
Amazing. And Maya, what led you to where you are today? Why did you set up Big Name on Campus, and what does it mean to be a values-led influencer agency?
It's funny. So it's BNOC, BNOC, but it does stand for Big Name on Campus. When people used to call me a BNOC, which shows my age. And that's why I decided to call the agency BNOC. I was inspired by social acronyms like LOL or OMG, or, the young generation love to shorten everything. I suppose BNOC, Big Name on Campus, was launched a year ago. Prior to launching the agency, I held positions like Director of Marketing and Comms at LADbible Group. So I suppose we were in a similar world. There was a few Social Chain people there as well. So yeah, I think also like Manchester based, right? Like a lot of people like cross-pollinated. And before that, I held senior marketing positions at Lidl and always kind of worked for challenger brands. For me, I suppose the driving force of why I decided to launch a talent agency is because I saw a massive shift in, especially during the pandemic, from traditional talent and social interactions to what it is now, where social currency is essentially everything and the most important thing that we focus on. So being at LADbible for a long time, I was able to see, the power of memes, and then like looking at influencers and the evolution of that and how we move forward. That really inspired me to launch my own agency. I saw that there was a gap in the market for a marketer with experience to launch an agency. So yeah, that is why I launched BNOC.
Great. So in the context of brand communications in 2025, how would both of you define a meme-led social strategy? How do you see brands kind of breaking away from the traditional polish campaigns and doing something a bit different? How much understanding of internet culture do they need to have to do this successfully?
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially when we first started maybe 4 years ago. It was quite a hard sell to kind of shift from the traditional campaigns they may have done previously of other agencies, and then it's not a copy and paste fits all. Like that may have worked back then on that particular channel, but like that won't work with us. So back then, and to be fair, still today, like there is a slight pushback, but we've done this now for over 5 years. So we have a lot of case studies to be like, look, if you want these results, this is what we did with this brand who might be similar to you. It might be an alcohol-led brand, for example. And kind of this is what we can do with the key campaign messaging as well. So I think there's definitely a give and a take in the sense of we can listen and take the brief on. We're all open ears to ideas. And I feel like, especially if you've worked sort of agency side and brand side, they kind of have their idea that they might think is funny, which they may find funny, but like, does that mean our audience will find it funny? So it's definitely a give and a take. And I feel like there's a fine line, and those, I guess, like challenger brands who are kind of like, we trust you to just do the good job, they'll get the rewards and the organic reach that we can do. Whereas if there is a bit of red tape, which I guess depending on the brand, like there is, and naturally you've got to work with that. But yeah, that can sort of hinder, I think, between authentic and sell.
And at the heart of it is kind of leaning into humour in a way that doesn't feel overtly branded, right? People don't want to be sold to.
No, I think that's the key thing as well, that we always say with clients who reach out. It's like Gen Z in particular, even millennials as well, they don't want to be sold to. Like, we're using Instagram as a light relief to kind of get away from everyday life. And I feel like if your favourite meme page is pumping a heavily polished ad to your feed, that could maybe tip you over the edge that day and be like, right, I'm following. Or may leave a sour taste in the mouth, be like, oh, I really like this page, but they've just sold out, which is something we always try and avoid.
Absolutely. And Maya, how do you define a meme-led social strategy? What do you think makes a solid approach?
I think, to your point, it's allowing people to create, allowing content creators, allowing meme pages to do what they do best. I think that when you approach a page, it's almost like you look at traditional media, you would never go to a journalist and tell them how to write an article that you want to be written. You go with the information, you let them digest it. And I think more marketers and more agencies and more brands need to understand that social creators are essentially the journalists, like the modern day journalists. So it's their page, you're trying to take their voice and their kind of like equity and translating your brand's messaging. So whether it's a meme, whether it's a content creator, you have to let them create. Otherwise, you can just, if you want it to be exactly the look and feel of it, then you can create an ad that you would then run as like a YouTube ad, as opposed to borrowing like a page to do it. So I think that, just echoing what you've said, it's very important, because I suppose the knock-on effect that it could have on the creator or the meme page is that if they create something that isn't authentic to their audience, it would not only turn their audience off, but it could also result in unfollowing, like bad engagement. So the reputational damage it can have for the creator or the meme page is also really, I suppose, instrumental. I do feel, though, that more brands and agencies are opening their minds up to allowing creators to create. That's a certain shift that I've seen. You look at brands and companies like Unilever, who are committing so much spend towards meme pages and influencer marketing. They're certainly seeing that allowing people and pages to do what they do best is going to yield the best results, top or bottom of funnel.
There's definitely a lot at stake on both sides, and that's why I think it's really interesting that, as you say, we're seeing big brands lean into this. I mean, a recent prominent example that came out of a partnership between Uber Eats and GBM was a picture of someone sat on a bench eating a roast dinner out of a giant Tupperware box that went viral because the branding was quite subtle. People maybe didn't realise that it was an ad at first glance. I mean, that was even used by the singer Jade to promote her single plastic box, and that was organic. Am I right in thinking?
Yeah, it was picked up organic.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing just shows the power that these kind of meme strategies can have. I mean, George, what do you think is the magic formula for viral posts like this, and how do you balance the tone of voice between the slightly chaotic messaging that people expect from a meme page and then kind of the key brand messages?
Yeah, so I think it's very clear to sort of lean on humour is kind of like the main thing for us, so kind of tying in the brand where it fits necessary. And like you said, the roast in a box is a good example where the branding was very subtle, but it was still there, and you could clearly see Uber Eats was there, but Uber Eats necessarily weren't the main talking point of the post and tapping into culture. So again, that particular post went on Great British Memes, so leaning in on a roast dinner being probably one of the top 10 British things in a box is kind of a little bit strange and pushing the boundaries a little bit in humour, but also could happen. And I think we saw a lot of sentiment in the comments being like, who is this queen? Like, gassing her up and being like, maybe not inspiring them, but that's quite fun. But I wouldn't look twice if I saw someone in London doing that, which, yeah, there's definitely that fine line. And in that particular situation, that was probably as far as we could push it without it being maybe too obvious or not as necessarily funny.
Yeah, I suppose it's something that could go viral with or without the branding, and kind of having that branding there is just an added bonus for them. Maya, what are your views on finding the balance between creative control and making sure that content doesn't feel too corporate in a brand or an influencer partnership?
I think the brief is everything. The way that a client sets a brief is so important. But actually, I think you're right about things feeling corporate. Unless it's a corporate video, it shouldn't feel corporate. The general creator space isn't a corporate space. It's fun. You're trying to talk to Gen Z, millennial, younger audiences typically. Not to say that older audiences aren't on socials. And it's also not to say that people don't lean into brand ads. If a brand ad is done well, people will engage with it. I have creators on my roster who are regularly creating content, and 90% of the comment sentiment will be like, this is the best brand ad. I could watch your ads all day. Because it's in their tone of voice. People are adapting the brief to their style of content. So it's not to say say that we have to do something that you're like sneaking a surprise on an audience and then people watch it at the end and they're like, oh, I didn't know that was an ad. It's just about allowing the creator, and coming back to what I said before, to translate messaging. If you want a really corporate brand message, then you should go to a corporate page or a corporate creator, I suppose. The main platforms like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok are, well, maybe a bit less so on YouTube because you can get lost in a longer piece of content. But for short form content, I think that most people, and certainly from what I've seen in my marketing experience, go there for escapism. When the pandemic hit, like for LADbible Group, we saw our engagement increase 400% pretty much overnight. People not wanting to see what was happening in terms of the pandemic, and people really finding amazing escapism and things like cat memes. So for us, when we had brands approaching us, that didn't mean that we had to translate their like brand messaging into cat memes, but it was about knowing what worked with our audience, knowing what they would respond positively to, so that when we received a brief, we were able to say, look, based on our insights, based on what our audience have told us they like, this is how we suggest translating your brand message. And that sounds like what you're doing, George, like with GBM. Like, it's absolutely that. And to be honest, I think that 90% of brands get it. And also, I suppose we're here to hold people's hands. Like, you're not meant to just get it overnight. It's very different from, you know, when you would go from a traditional TV ad to a social ad. So I think there is still that kind of navigating the Wild West and taking people on a journey. But that's why you're able to secure partnerships like Uber Eats, right? And what the amazing thing about that is that they're clearly a very receptive brand who are like, we'll work with you. We're not closed to like changing the brief every month. They're clearly looking at data and insights and seeing what's working well, and they're adapting. I think they're the kind of ideal relationships and the best way of working in my experience as well.
Great. George, so GBM, I believe, is currently working on a partnership with Virgin Media O2 that's upcoming, kind of looking to put them at the forefront of cultural moments. What can you tell us about that and what we can expect to see?
So we've actually been trying to work with O2 and Virgin for a little while now. I know I've known Rachel for a couple of years and was kind of waiting for that right moment, because I feel like sitting in, especially with O2 as well, they kind of sit perfectly within culture, and O2 and Virgin Media are sitting in different pillars such as sport, gaming, etc. So when the brief came through, I was sort of very keen to work around it, even though it was a very quick turnaround. It was very reminded me of uni when I was finishing my assignments and I was doing all-nighters, but also the thrill of kind of doing that and kind of putting together a really fun pitch, which in the end, I believe our ideas sort of really kind of pushed the boat out there, and they were really keen to see just the selection of the few ideas we made kind of come to life. So the partnership started in August, so it's very early days, and we're kind of working with them on a few bits now, such as the women's rugby. So we've got that coming out that's gone live with G, which was cool to take a brand's hero piece, I guess, and memify it to fit our channels, which with Uber Eats, we don't do that too much, but with O2, they have so much to work on. So it's kind of like that particular moment sort of fitted really well on our page. And we actually went to Glencoe, which is up in the north of Scotland, where O2 sort of had their remote gig that was then broadcasted down in London to sort of show like the power of the network. But yeah, very early days, but looking forward to like tapping in more into culture, especially when it comes into Christmas time. Lots of exciting things to do, but yeah, very, very early days now with the partnership.
Are there certain types of brands that you think suit this type of meme-led marketing particularly well, or are there any that it doesn't really work for?
Yeah, I think in terms of like our hit list, especially when we reach out to brands, like we really want to make sure that that particular brand fits well. So like M&S, for example, during 2024, we had a long-term partnership working on different things, such as key moments for them as a brand, also new product launches. And we did a lot of things such as like Colin's birthday, for example, which is kind of like, again, like trying to push something that's already very relevant. And in our office, like whenever it's anyone's birthday, like that's the cake of choice. And I feel like growing up as well, I feel like that was the fairly standard one. Like, I don't know, I feel like Colin in itself is kind of embedded himself into culture, so much so that he has like his own Instagram, his own TikTok, very much culturally relevant. So that partnership made sense. And again, kind of tapping into like new examples of like foods that we're releasing. And it was kind of an open brief, and it kind of goes back to like clients like that who aren't afraid to mix things up. Like, we're not planning posts 3 months in advance where we're mocking up the asset, and then realistically, like, is that relevant in 3 months time? Like, this long lead time, don't get me wrong, with video content it's different. And I feel like with producing stuff as well, like, you maybe need a little bit of time when it comes to like still imagery and like, we just call them stills, I guess, but like that can be mocked up on Canva a week before, ready to go live, and then the copy can be changed depending on what's happening that week.
Maya, what's your take on the brands that lend themselves particularly well to memes and humour versus ones that maybe shouldn't take that approach?
I think that any brand can. It's all about reactivity, right? So, for example, brands that jumped onto the Coldplay cheating scandal, they're all different industries, different types of brands, and actually they're the ones who drove fame for them. You look at a brand like Jet2 you wouldn't have necessarily thought would be like the most iconic brand of the summer, but they were, and they lent themselves to social so well. So I think there are countless examples of brands that you might say are a bit bland or boring. I wouldn't have necessarily, when I started working with Lidl all those years ago, you're both probably too young to remember, but when I was growing up, certainly like if you had like little crisps in your lunchbox, it was embarrassing. You were perceived to be poor. Whereas like nowadays, when kids will have a little crisps in their lunchbox, they're savvy. They know how to save money. Like people wear things like Primark with pride now. I suppose the issue for us was like, how do we make this an iconic cultural brand? And Little Surprises, a campaign that we launched in 2014, allowed us to do that because we tapped into real time like surprises and moments, and we became this iconic brand that, we created what we call an army of Lidlers. They became this like defenders of the brand. So I think that if you have an open mind and you are willing to take risks and trust partners like Great British Memes who like have their finger on the pulse culturally, also creators who are willing to work with you, it's about having your hand held in this like Wild West and kind of like taking a risk, but it can pay off hugely. Like I have no doubt that Jet2 sales will be through the roof as a result of the summer that they had. M&S tapping into Colin being a cultural icon, even Aldi are fantastic on X, for an example, right? So like them being able to use social media to show their personality, to show humor and sarcasm, for example, absolutely has incredible results when it comes down to the bottom line and people shopping in their stores. So I think that there is no list of brands that shouldn't tap into socials. I've seen examples, even like, like awards like Cannes, like seasonal awards, that people are winning things for the fact that they've thought outside of the box in terms of marketing. And actually, I think the brands that you probably expect to be on social the least should be on social the most.
Interesting. I mean, there can be risks. I mean, you mentioned the Coldplay concert CEO moment. Some brands were praised for weighing in on that. Others were criticised for making a joke about it. How do you think brands should decide which trends to get involved with, and what would be your litmus test for that?
I think that getting involved with something for the sake of it isn't the way to go. Like, I assume most big brands will have PR departments and they stress test things. It has to be something that's relevant. Also, in no way seeking to offend. I think it's a case by case basis, but certainly when I was at Lidl, we would err on the side of caution. If something massive happened, then obviously we would talk to our PR teams. We'd understand what the risk involved is. But there are lighter things as well that you can jump on reactively. I think it just depends. Like you have to be so careful as to who you're going to offend. Obviously, like cancel culture, and people are very aware of what they're posting and should be aware there is a responsibility to not offend. But that's why also, I suppose, the benefit of teaming up with a creator, somebody that has experience, or a page like GBM or LADbible, what have you, that you say, okay, this has happened, we're super reactive, how would you translate this, can we do it with you? Because they're the experts, right? Creators, these pages, so that you're not taking, I suppose, the accountability and necessarily doing it on your own socials. That's another option if you do want to try and weigh into reactivity.
What are your views on kind of taking risks with humour, George?
I think as well, like we have to be really careful just in general. Like we have a rule of thumb where like if it would offend anyone, if there's a second thought of, okay, cool, I like that piece of content, but would it offend someone like that? We kind of stay away and straight from caution. I feel like as well, as Maya mentioned, like when brands come to us, like especially in a small social team, because I appreciate some brands actually don't actually have necessarily a massive PR team or someone to rebound like ideas. So they come maybe to us and be like, right, we got this idea. What do you think? And we can kind of be like, look, like we're actually not covering this. So like you guys, like with this wouldn't be a partnership we can do, and we would probably stress to avoid it. So especially clients in long-term relationships with us kind of use us as that, I guess, second opinion. It helps as well. Like I've built the team from just myself to now 15 of us, and like we obviously have these other pages and we're posting content, creating content, and it is sometimes nice just to have like one person be like, I think this is a really funny idea, what do you think? And they go, look, it's good, but it's on the line, so let's probably not do it. Yeah, and I feel like some creators as well do have that network. I know quite a few creators who chat to each other, and I live with a creator and he sometimes asks me like, what do you think of this idea? And I'm like, yeah, it's good, or don't know, maybe stay away from that. So I think it's a luxury to have, but I feel like using brands like ours and then working with other brands kind of like springboard ideas is also a good idea, just to be cautious on some things.
And what are the most common mistakes that you both see PR and marketing teams make when they're trying to help brands seem relatable online? It's kind of, I guess, a case of avoiding that "how do you do, fellow kids, I'm one of you" scenario. What would you say to that, Maya?
I think that a lot of the time people aren't referencing data, they're not referencing examples. A lot of the time when I've been in rooms with people who have ideas, and it's tended to be people who've seen like somebody do something once and they're sure that we should base an entire strategy on it. I think that there has to be a strategic reason why you're doing something, because how can you measure success otherwise? So in order to work with a page or a creator, in order to yield the best results, there has to be a really good objective and something that builds up to it. So that would be it for me.
Yeah, I think as well, just to add, like, there's not a one shoe fits all. Like Duolingo, for example, we've had a lot of brands come to us be like, we want you guys, here's a pitch to run our TikTok, but like, this is inspired by Duolingo, we want it to be similar. And it's just like, I think we can all say we've seen probably some brands try and mimic it and it hasn't worked. And like, what makes Duolingo so good is like, they did it first and others copied, which just kind of boosted it even further and brought more eyes to it and stuff. So I think that's one example, as well as, again, I feel like we get it with PR more than social agencies, but like PR will have a really good idea that sounds unreal to the press and the story sounds great, but like, how does that translate into social? Like that idea they have to then make into social just seems forced and fake. Like, I don't know, a shortage of something, like you can't really fake. No one's going to believe that necessarily, or like, why would people care about this particular brand that now has run out of stock? Like, I know Guinness did it and it works, but I believe they actually did have a shortage, if I'm correct. But like, again, like that worked for them, picked up sort of a lot of press and kind of worked like that, but it doesn't mean that's going to work for other people. So yeah, it's very much like, yeah, how do you do, fellow kids sort of thing. That may work for like a journalist or a newspaper, but like that doesn't translate into social.
It's a good point that these kind of traditional PR campaign ideas that will get coverage in the media aren't necessarily the same things that go viral on social, because I think audiences online, especially younger audiences, have quite good media literacy and they know if they're being fed something that a brand has completely manufactured. So yeah, really good point. I mean, how do you both feel about the whole concept of brands getting involved in the comment section of either other brands' videos or kind of interacting with random people's videos that have gone viral? Do you think that serves a real purpose, or is it just a bit of fun?
I think it's great. In terms of my creators, I have like a couple of examples. Matteo, the pasta man, Matteo Zelenko, he just created, he wanted to get some attention. I think when brands see a content creator that makes pasta, they don't necessarily think, oh, this is how I could work with a pasta creator, and therefore he has two viral, very recent piece of content. One for Le Creuset, which lots of people saw. He basically made ravioli out of Le Creuset, well, Le Creuset inspired, and he also did Lego as well, because he wanted to break down boundaries and he was tagging people. I mean, you had, last time I counted, 20 brands in the comment section being like, Gap being like, can you make denim ravioli? So many different examples, and it was fantastic for him because the result has been a lot more brand deals, because people are like, wow, I want him to do our brand next. But certainly, you know, when you see, like, for example, when it comes to Christmas or anything in the supermarket space, you have loads of brands engaging, and that helps drive personality for the brand. Ultimately, how do you create a personality for a faceless brand? It's very hard to do so. So the comment section and that organic content is really important. And it's something that when we were at Lidl, especially, we invested a lot of time in. And certainly at LADbible, the reason that people know Lad's personality isn't just through the memes that they created. It was also the engagement they had that they built up across, you know, several pages. And the same for you, I suppose,
Yeah,
George.
I think it's really important for us, like sort of CRM and kind of commenting on key moments. So like every admin of every page, like for example, sport page, like we're always on, well, I would do it, but like for F1, for example, I'll be watching the race. So I'm straight on F1's actual Instagram page, ready to drop some sort of comment that shows that the audience is there. With Grey Bruce memes, I support Chelsea, so I do comment on Chelsea stuff. And I feel like you'll get, especially with a comment as well, you'll get a DM being like, unreal that the admin's a Chelsea fan, like respect or something like that, which is quite funny. And I feel like, again, you can play on this tone of voice of like GBM as a company as well is fairly cheeky with like the advertisements that we do and the content we create. So I feel like the pages should be the same, whether that's commenting on a moment that's happened or whether it's a sporting moment or something, just really adding that tone of voice, which works. But then I think there is a time and place for brands. So yeah, I think it's very different. Like, for example, a brand should be commenting in a space where they're necessarily not just always in the top comments of viral videos. Because obviously we source a lot of content and we'll find these viral videos and there will be some brands that are like always in the comments, which is fine. But I feel like people are clocking on and they're starting to be like, why are you here? So I agree. I think it's a really good space, and like it allows people to be creative and the brand builds a tone of voice. But then there is in my opinion, there's a slight line of maybe they shouldn't be here, or like, why are you here? And you can see in some of the comments, like some brands are really good at doing it, and you can see in the replies, which they can't hide. They're like, someone, they might be trolling, or it's still someone's opinion. They're still like, oh, like, why are you here? Which then can negatively like affect the brand, in my opinion. But it's a small minority, so it's not like...
Use it sparingly. I
yeah,
suppose.
rather than just spamming your For You page.
I think good advice for most things.
Yeah.
Pivoting slightly, Maya, I know you've been involved with some talks around the government strategy with digital creators. I wondered what you can tell us about how you see that evolving, especially at the moment, and how their output compares to what we might see from a brand nowadays.
So apolitically, the government, but not affiliated to the Labour Party, have launched a new department called the New Media Unit. So it is like the Cabinet Office, like any other office that would serve whichever party is in currently. And the New Media Unit seeks to translate any messaging or any policies that would be announced via social. So the issue, and I think it is fair, that we were seeing and that we were experiencing is that people were translating what might be put out in newspapers or the news on television or radio, what have you, into their own language without actually receiving any info about what it is from the horse's mouth. So in order to ensure that things are being conveyed correctly, the government recognized that they had a responsibility to connect to creators. But also there's a lot of creators who were never talking about any policies, who had no interest in voting. And I think that voting amongst young people is really low. So actually they recognize that social media isn't going anywhere. Viewing figures on news and radio and newspaper circulations for traditional media are dwindling. So they also recognize that they had to tap into the social generation. So they have brought on several consultants, such as myself, to understand how they can tap into creators better, more effectively, but also what do the right content creators look like? Is it, do you want to go for like a K content creator? Probably not. Like, where do they start? Like, they're really starting from fresh. So I think due to like my experience and my background, I was one of the people that, has been recognized to come on and support them. So I've had several meetings at Number 10. I was most recently at the Cabinet Office, and they seem in a good place where they have a lot of advisors. I suppose it's about tapping into creators' interests and making sure that things are being conveyed. I think the issue that government has is that there's a lot of reactivity and, trying to get a content creator who might talk about something that isn't always connected to politics, that they're not a political page to talk about like new policies. That's kind of, we need to, I suppose, establish a good way of working, because there are a few news accounts, but again, how do you convey messaging to like the everyday young person on social? It's not that clear cut, but it's great and inspiring to see that they do recognize that social is a massive area that they need to recognize. So I suppose watch this space.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously today we've been talking a lot about this kind of lo-fi meme style content from brands. Do you think there's still a solid place for polished traditional campaigns? Do you think that people still appreciate those in certain spaces?
I mean, maybe because I'm a certain age, I look forward to Christmas ads. I love it every year. Maybe it's because of my little background as well. I bloody love a Christmas ad. So I do think that there are opportunities, where like the family gather around on the sofa or, even on YouTube or what have you. Yes, there are those moments. But I think if you're only doing that and you're not lending yourself to social at all, then perhaps there's an issue. I also think that marketers are becoming a lot more savvy, creating a bells and whistles campaign ad costs millions sometimes, whereas actually if you take that budget and lend it to social, to influencers, to meme pages, you're also able to create something amazing. I think in prior days, that was the only way to capture someone's attention, whereas now you can be a lot more savvy. It's kind of like the Lidl analogy that I made before, right? That before people almost embarrassed to be savvy, whereas now we wear it like a badge of honor. So actually being able to be savvy, being able to look at data that drives our marketing direction is so important. So I suppose it's why you doing it? Like, are you doing it just to create like an outstanding visually cinematic piece of content, or do you actually want to drive results? and capture audiences. And if it's the latter and it's kind of a campaign outside of Christmas, which is the only one I can really think of when people really like are drawn, or in cinema, of course, that's different. But yeah, I would say that if it's the latter and it's kind of bottom of the funnel and driving footfall, you probably do want to target more of your spend towards social, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. George, what's your view on kind of high production value content?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Maya pretty much said what I was going to say. I feel like, especially with Christmas and like cultural moments, I feel like the UK is probably just one of the biggest in terms of like culture, and like we have a lot of Americans, Australians that are interested in like British culture, and I feel like Christmas ads, like I hope they stay, like even the Coca-Cola one, like, and then that obviously kind of translate into real life as well where they do the tour. So it's kind of like it needs to be a full sort of circle thing of every part of marketing. And again, I agree, like getting influencers, creators, social media involved in some aspects when necessary. So not just maybe for Christmas, but other stuff. We actually had a little test with Uber Eats where they announced their Sky Sports partnership, and we were lucky enough to promote a Spotted in the Wild video of the three managers, Sam Allardyce, Alan Pardew and Tony Pulis, playing ping pong. That is relevant in culture because those three managers are known for keeping teams up in relegation battles, and like those three probably haven't been spotted out in public together ever. So when we post this video, this was just a teaser of what was to come Sunday when the Sky Sports sort of partnership was announced and it was on TV. And we had a lot of people come back to the video to say, oh, I've just seen this on TV. Like, this is so cool. And kind of, I think that's where involving other medias with a TV ad can work really well, because we were lucky enough to get access to this video. No one else had it. So it was very easy for us to follow like the social sort of like proof of like where it's gone. It made it onto football Twitter. Like, this is something you can't guarantee this. Like, this is very much same with Jade from Little Mix. Like, we didn't know she was going to do that, but she did it because she wanted to do it. So that kind of works with that. And I feel like if it's done right, it can spread easily, and then it can kind of be picked up with press. So I feel like with certain moments of TV ads, if it's done right and put on social first, it can then create that buzz, and then people come back to it from different sort of ways of seeing the video and stuff.
Nice. Another trend which I think is quite interesting is sort of in the age of bite-sized content, whether that be through TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, I think there is, certainly from some brands, sort of a bit of a move back towards long-form content. I think we're seeing some brands invest in like YouTube channels and that kind of thing, like JD Sports, Gymshark, Foot Asylum are really putting out these 20-minute videos, maybe even longer. They're acting like fully functioning creator channels. Do you think we'll see more of this long-form content from brands, Maya?
I absolutely think they should do more of it, 100%. I think does the shoe fit? I think Foot Asylum is like the best case study for success here. I also like having, when I was at Lidl, I remember we'd go into battle every time to try and sponsor a show like Great British Bake Off. There's obviously only one slot to do that. You're in a bidding war. Before you know it, you're spending millions of pounds for something that's on TV. Obviously, we know that circulations and viewerships are dwindling. So if you can be the puppeteer rather, and have your own show created on a platform like YouTube, first of all, you can monetize from it so that you could potentially make money off the back of it. But secondly, you don't need a show anymore to give you idents and sponsorship opportunities. You can create your own show using really good talent, using incredible creatives to really land your message even more. There are no rules on YouTube to say you can only show the logo of the product once and it has to be in such a way because Channel 4 tells you have to do so. For me, if I was a brand, I would absolutely explore it. I think it's a really good opportunity. And certainly when I was at LADbible, we saw loads of brands like Ben & Jerry's, and I mean, I could reel off pretty much every brand under the sun who saw creating content with LAD, and they had an entire studio, LAD Studios and other commercial entities where they could create content on behalf of brands. And it's just such a great way to tap into audiences. I haven't seen the data, so I don't know if brands are shifting in that way, but I certainly think it's a great idea. And if I was still a marketing director, I would explore it.
Do you think we'll see more long form, George?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely a shift, and I've noticed it personally for myself from lockdown, where it was short form after doom scrolling, which is still obviously a thing. But I think now people are taking the time to be like, after an evening at work or something, I'm going to sit down and watch something. And don't get me wrong, there's still lots of choices on like Netflix, Amazon, etc., etc. But if you do that every day, you're going to be running low on sort of TV shows to watch. And I think YouTube is definitely changing because they have YouTube Shorts, which I think works really well. And I found myself scrolling on YouTube Shorts for some reason a couple of days ago, and I was like, I don't normally do this, but it was quite an easy process, probably a little bit easier than TikTok, and it was very tailored to me. It was literally short sort of long form video content that I've watched, so it was kind of very personal, and I knew straight away. But again, I feel like it's just doing it right in terms of a brand. And you're right, like Foot Asylum and JD, I feel like pioneered most of it to start with, and we worked with them back then in 2021 where we repurposed YouTube clips as memes onto Instagram. So I feel like, and that strategy worked to build it, because back in 2021 it wasn't maybe as big as it is now. So again, I think and they used the right creators at the time to kind of really push it. And then now people are like, these clips just circulate the internet naturally. Like you'll find pages similar to ours probably reposting old clips from JD videos that are really, really, really funny. But again, that wasn't forced, that just happened. That was a natural moment. But I can't see too many brands jumping on a YouTube series. Like it just wouldn't make sense for Purcell, for example. I can't imagine them doing a YouTube series anytime soon. But for brands like Foot Asylum and JD, it works perfectly well for that audience who are looking to buy shoes and products from their store.
Yeah, really good point about repurposing it across different channels as well. We're almost out of time, but before we go, it'd be great to get some advice from you both on what you would tell a brand that wants to become more culturally led in its social strategy. Starting with you, Maya.
I think that brands should not fear consulting with social experts. I think having conversations, I think putting your hands up and saying, listen, I'm not an expert in social, like my experience has been traditional media or media buying or whatever it is, and being receptive to things that people are telling you is really important. I think that you should also be receptive to consuming the content. So in order for people to understand YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, they should also spend some time on there to understand, the types of content, so that, if you are going to be creating a series of ads on Instagram, for example, that you understand what engagement looks like basic things. But I think that you have to become a consumer of social. That's probably my biggest advice. And then you get quickly caught and I find myself doom scrolling all the time as well. But that's part of it, right? You become a consumer, and then you understand the value and you understand why it's so important that you don't ignore it. I think any brand, doesn't actually matter what industry they're in, should be on social and should have a presence. I think it's so important. And it's gonna, especially going on to YouTube viewing has overtaken Netflix. It's in the future. If you've got nieces, nephews, children, people who are kind of 14 and below, they will only watch YouTube. They're not even watching Netflix anymore. So for you not to be on there as a brand is really, you'll become extinct. It's the way forward. So you should adapt before you lose your opportunity to exist.
For sure. George, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think for brands, especially for in this space, is not to be scared. I hate the word, but it gets thrown around a lot, but tester posts or tester packages is fine, to give it a go. And again, I feel like some brands will see more success from others and some won't, but unless you know, then kind of give it a test and you won't have anything to compare it to or a case study to go back to. And I think as well from the brand side, again, to this person who's a brand manager, so needs to immerse themselves in sort of social and needs to understand as well. You can't come to someone to help you if you don't understand yourself, or if the brand's not posting on social in general as well, how are you expecting for it to work? So yeah, I feel like the main thing is, again, not to be scared and try things, because at the end of the day, if you don't fail, then you're not going to learn.
Great. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got for today, but thanks so much to George and Maya for taking part and sharing their very valuable insights. Thanks to you two for listening, and until next time, goodbye.